So it looks like Germany is getting an update, and I for one am pretty excited about that. It's been a bit weird playing Hoi 4 for a while, when the driving force of World War II has the simplest and one could say the most outdated focus tree of all the major countries. And when countries like Lithuania and Switzerland have more complicated focus trees, yeah, it's about time Germany got an update. But it's also gonna be a bit weird that Germany is no longer the simple, straight to the point, maybe even the relaxing major nation in the game. The feel of playing Germany is probably going to change quite drastically. This is why I wanted to take a look at all the different ways you can play Germany at its current state. So if you want to be a true Germany completionist, now's your chance to play the current version of Germany in every way possible. So here's 11 ways to play Germany in Hearts of Iron 4. And yes, I'm gonna go over every possible political path in the German focus tree. Even the focuses which don't seem to have any effect, like at all. And also, these are mainly scenarios that happen in historical mode, and Germany is going to be the one who will diverge from real history. Some scenarios do require the outside powers to diverge from their historical path, but I will be pointing those cases out separately. And also, all of this is based on vanilla Hearts of Iron, but I will be using this mod to change some countries' colors. This is mainly so that different power blocks and puppet master relationships are easier to visualize. Okay, that's everything, let's start. Despite its simplicity, the German fascist path is one of the most powerful focus paths in the game. Your industrial and military focuses give you a significant head start on other European countries, but the political branch is the most important one. For the next 3 years, you get to take advantage of the naivete of France and Britain and one by one transfer your neighbor's territory to yourself. But when 1939 rolls around, you need to start actually fighting a war. The idea of having to fight a two-front war might seem a bit scary, but no worries. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact ensures that no fighting will happen between you and the Soviet Union. Now you only have to worry about the Western allies. And Poland. Speaking of which, they just rejected your ultimatum to transfer the Polish corridor back to your possession. They'd rather fight the war with the backing of France and Britain. So, it's time for war. You quickly realized that fighting against the Poles is almost as easy as pressing one button to annex a whole country. Their army is no match for yours, and after a month of fighting, they capitulate to you. Now it's time to focus on France, whose troops are just standing on their border, doing nothing. But before you can start your invasion, you must first take over Denmark and Norway, because you can. Now you're ready to take on France, but their border is full of level 10 forts. Luckily, there are no forts here, so you declare war on them. You quickly push the allied troops all the way to Paris, and just like that, France surrenders. You set up a puppet government in the south and keep the rest to yourself. Now, only Britain is left standing. And you have even gotten a new ally, Italy. I bet their help will come in handy. Unfortunately, the British live on an island, and it just happens that they have the most powerful navy in the world and a massive air force. Despite how hard you try to bomb their ships, you just can't maintain air superiority for long enough for the bombing to be effective. An invasion of Britain just isn't feasible right now, so you decide to focus on your true nemesis, the Soviet Union. During the war, you have gained many new allies, but at the same time, Italy has been fumbling their invasion of Greece, so you must spend valuable resources to help them out. After you have consolidated the Balkans, you can finally start preparations for Operation Barbarossa. In the summer of 1941, you declare war on the Soviet Union. And you're doing great! You quickly occupy large swaths of land and encircle massive portions of the Red Army. You're almost at the gates of Moscow, when suddenly, your advance slows down. And just like that, you can't push any further. That can't be good. Even more bad news. Japan has declared war on both of the United States and Britain. This makes the US join the Allies, which now makes them your enemy. Suddenly, the Soviets start pushing you back. They just seem to have an infinite amount of divisions. And even worse, the Allies managed to land an invasion force in Italy, and all of a sudden, the Italians are fighting against you, those backstabbers. Another naval invasion was staged in Normandy, and the Allied army swiftly liberated all of France. At the same time, the Soviets have almost reached your core territory. The situation seems to be hopeless. Not soon after, Germany was fully occupied. At the following peace negotiations, it was split into 4 occupation zones, and nothing was left for you to control. Looks like the 1000-year Reich just wasn't meant to be. So, you try again, but this time you do everything with a bit more finesse. This means that when fighting for air superiority over Britain, you manage to destroy the Royal Air Force and cement your position in the skies of your enemy. Now you can put your new plan into motion. You have trained special paratroopers who you sent to land into the southern ports of the island. Despite some resistance, you outmaneuver the British divisions and manage to get a foothold on the island. Now you're free to send the full might of your army to conquer Britain. It doesn't take long at all before the United Kingdom capitulates to you. Now it's your turn to dictate what happens to the territory of your enemies. You, of course, annex everything you can. Direct control is the best form of control. On an important note, you also take the French and British navies for yourself, so that you can effectively rival the naval power of the United States. Now it's time for Operation Barbarossa, which you launch a full 6 months early, when the Soviets are still in the early stages of recovering from the purges. Along with the lack of Western lend-lease, the Soviets are no match for you in terms of military power. In a year, you managed to make the Soviets surrender. In the peace negotiations, you of course annex everything. With your European rivals having been defeated, you proclaim the Greater German Reich. But there is still one country which might grow to pose a threat to you: the United States. It's better to strike now while they're still in the process of recovering from the Great Depression. You station your armies into Canada and declare war. To speed things up, you plan multiple naval invasions on both coasts of the United States. With the combined fleets of Britain, France and Italy, the Americans stood no chance, and the naval invasions went ahead. A few months later, you annex everything. While you were fighting the Americans, Japan suddenly declared war on you. They apparently want some of your new Southeast Asian colonies. Japan is the last remaining major power standing against you. They had even succeeded in their mission to subjugate all of China. Could they truly be the ones who put your ambitions in check? You annex everything. So, there is no one left to oppose you. You are victorious. Well, you could also conquer literally every independent country that's left. But why? Is it to satisfy your unending thirst for power? What is there to gain from a full world conquest? Isn't this enough, knowing that you're the sole hegemon of the world? Maybe it's just better to be happy about what you have. Annex everything. Okay, you tried war, and was it really that fun? The fun part was clicking a button and getting free land. So let's take that to the maximum. And also make some new allies in the process. At the game start, you immediately start spamming cheat divisions so that you can annex Austria as soon as possible. You build your army some more, and then you get some more land. But this time, instead of leaving things just at annexing Czechoslovakia, you look down to your south and start bullying Yugoslavia too. Piece by piece, you divide Yugoslavia with your allies until in the end you take them over completely. Then you look even further south, towards Greece, and you already know what to do. Greece accepted your demand and became your puppet. At the same time, Hungary and Romania were turning to fascism. This is great news, since you can coerce them to become your puppets. Now you have a decision to make. You can either let your subjects stay autonomous and you can be the puppet master of Europe, or you can annex them and become the greater German Reich. Let's choose the latter. But you're not done yet. It's time to make some allies. Your main problem with Poland is the Polish corridor, which splits your country in two. So, what if you strike them a deal to exchange it for Slovakia? So you do that, and they accept. Nice. It's time to influence them further. You of course have had your spies working there from the very start of the game to increase the popularity of fascism. With all your hard work, Poland flips to fascism and joins the Axis. Except they don't, because that's not possible. And this focus is just completely useless. But let's pretend that they do. Maybe they just happen to be doing the fascist path. You start influencing other European countries too, which one by one turn to fascism and join your alliance. The Western allies are left flabbergasted. You have increased your land area over twofold and you are left in control of the strongest alliance in Europe. Would anyone get any ideas? You're ready to answer back with overwhelming power. You and your allies. A new game, the same old story. Time to demand the Sudetenland. But this time, the Brits don't agree to the transfer. Seems like they have chosen to abandon appeasement. Okay then, their choice. Time to declare war. But it's only 1938, and you're still in the middle of building your army. And the Czechs have built many level 10 forts all over the border, and your tanks just can't manage to break through. Not even the Italian entry into the war helps. Because why would it? But what's this? The Astor conspiracy? An assassination? Uh-oh. Well, time to change sides. You take control of the democratic rebels and now fight alongside the allies against the same government which you just played as. Pretty quickly you get back all of your core territory and now it's basically just Italy against 3 different major powers. They decide to mimic your strategy and start their own civil war. The whole kerfuffle was over in less than a year. That didn't exactly go to plan. Well, at least you didn't really lose any territories. And now you're a member of a democratic alliance with 3 other major countries. Maybe this isn't that bad. It's like some kind of proto-European Union. And you know what that means. Time to take over from the inside. Okay then, the Italians are clearly no help to us. It's time to look for new allies. Someone who could maybe help us out on our 2 fronts problem. Hey, you know who could help us to avoid that completely? The Soviet Union. Okay, technically they are your mortal enemy, but you know the saying, enemy of my enemy is a friend. Unholy is certainly an understatement to describe this alliance, but just maybe it could work. Hey, why not try it out? And they accepted. That's surprising. I wonder what the allies think of this new friendship. Oh shit. Looks like they didn't really like that. Basically every democracy joined their alliance. Even the US broke their isolationism. Well, now it's all or nothing. You must show them the power of totalitarianism. Okay, after millions of casualties, the Allies have been banished from mainland Europe. Only Britain and the US are left standing. Time to prepare for a naval invasion. Let's see, just how many more ships do you need to catch up to the Allies? Shit. Well, time to start building some ships then. Nice, you managed to destroy most of the Allied navy. Now you just need to stage the landings, first in Great Britain and then in the US. Now how many divisions do they have at this point? What the fuck? Finally, it's over. The Allies have been conquered. Looks like the Berlin-Moscow axis was a good idea after all. Though, now that there is no common enemy, is there even a reason to stay as allies? They do have some really nice land too. Maybe if you just, subtly kick them out, and then not just casually start justifying a war goal. It can't take too many casualties to win this war, right? Right? Okay, enough fascism. Time to kick those guys out. I have to say, I really find the German Civil War very refreshing in its simplicity. Just one focus and you can start blasting. Anyways, when the Civil War is over, you need to make a choice. Return to democracy or reinstate the Kaiserreich. Man, this is a really tough choice. You better think long and hard about this. So now that you're an empire, you of course need an emperor, and as luck would have it, the old one is still alive in the Netherlands. Now you just need to nicely ask them to let the Kaiser return to Germany. And they accept. Great. The emperor is back. Now there's only one thing to do. Revenge against those who wronged you 20 years ago. But you really need a navy, so get on building one. Luckily, these focuses give great bonuses on shipbuilding. It's time to start another naval arms race. Last time it didn't really go well, but the second time's the charm, right? At the same time, you can try to convince Poland to give your former territories back. Looks like all it takes is some guarantees. I'm not sure how good of a deal this really is for Poland. Do you really want to trade the richest regions of your country and access to the sea for a pinky promise from Germany that they will help you defend your poorest territories? Yes? Well, I'm not complaining. You're also going to need some allies. You could try to convince the Austro-Hungarian successor states to reunite under a Habsburg monarch, because you know... nostalgia. Also, you have the opportunity to assassinate Mussolini of Italy, making the king the new ruler. Just like that, by pressing a button, you can just kill the leader of another country. Well, at least Italy can now reject the coup, but yeah, Paradox, I agree with updating Germany. But hey, now the old Triple Alliance is back in power. Maybe this time it will actually work. Okay, it's 1939, time to roll. How are you going to beat the Allies this time? By doing the exact same thing as last time? Okay, Schlieffen once more. And the French melt like butter. The Brits are next, and the naval build-up really worked out. The Royal Navy is at the bottom of the ocean. Let the payback commence. Okay, the Allies have surrendered. You could just annex everything, but that's the fascist way, and there is a much better alternative. Take some colonies in Africa and establish puppet monarchs at the thrones of your fallen enemies. Now this is looking great. Oh, Poland is being invaded. Well, you did promise to help them. Hey, why not? You get to assign another puppet monarch in Russia. And just like that, the war is over. Most of the European powers are once again monarchies. Except this time, the Triple Alliance members are the top dogs of the continent. There is also another way to play Imperial Germany. If you don't feel like building a navy to fight the British, you can instead just ally them. Yes, the German Empire accepts to be in the shadow of the British. Now you can fully focus on fighting the Comintern, which there seems to be a new member of. The French see this new alliance between Germany and Britain as a total betrayal by the Brits, so they slip into communism and ally with the Soviet Union for protection. In turn, you establish the Anti-Soviet Pact, where in case of an attack on a member country, every other member must come to their defense. Not everyone signs the pact, but you still manage to get some new potential allies. Despite the alliance and a guarantee from Germany, Poland still just gives its eastern territories away. Like why? Either way, the war starts when the Soviets invade Finland. As a member of the Anti-Soviet Pact, the Allies are brought into the war. And who is gonna win? The Allies, of course. Different worldviews clash in the peace negotiations, as the democratic Britain and authoritarian Germany try to carve up the spoils of war along their vision. Soon after Comintern falls, the Italians declare war on Yugoslavia, which then joins the Allies. Italy then realizes that it's outnumbered and it joins the East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. Really? Well, it's time for the great anti-fascist war. And who is going to win? The Allies, of course. Italy doesn't stand a chance, and Japan also eventually falls, especially with them bringing the Americans into the war too. So after 2 half-world wars, a new world order is established. One where 2 different ideologies fight for influence, without resorting to traditional warfare. An iron curtain has descended, in quite a few places actually. A new era is about to start, an era of Cold War, where democrats and monarchists stand opposed to each other. Okay, let's try the monarchist path one more time, but this time delete all your divisions you have left over from the civil war before you demand the return of the Kaiser. With literally no army, you aren't really that intimidating, and now the Netherlands have the balls to say no to your demands. Wilhelm II will stay in the Netherlands, so you have to make Wilhelm III, his son, the Kaiser instead. It's also a good idea to secure the line of succession. Also, maybe you should also make your planes and airships a bit safer. And look, a massive disaster on Hindenburg was avoided. This ship truly is invincible. Now it's time to improve relations with the British and join them in an alliance. Now you could also ask Britain to restore your British titles, which they wrongfully stripped away from you at the advent of the last war. And they accept. Be sure to send Princess Victoria Louise as a liaison to make sure that the ceremony will be up to standard. The rest of the royal family will arrive later in London, in the Hindenburg. So, now Victoria is the Kaiserin of Germany, and her ambition is like no one else's. She has plans to restore the Holy Roman Empire, the most united and functional of all the empires in history. Now that Britain is your ally, you don't have anyone to worry about while reuniting the Holy Roman Empire. So, that was a pretty easy couple of wars. You really don't want to annex anything beyond your imperial claims. Why? Because the borders of the Holy Roman Empire were already perfect. Okay, do the civil war again, but this time you get to play as the best ideology in the game. Democracy. Do people really not like playing as democratic countries? I guess they might be boring if you have nothing to do, but come on, is playing as the UK boring? Or as the USA? Either ways, let's get back to the topic. But hey, you can still reinstate the monarchy. Look, there he is. Just like the monarchist path. Now that you're a free democratic country, your worst enemy is the most evil ideology of them all. Communism. The Great Red Menace. And to combat this threat looming over Europe, you must establish the Central European Alliance. Now, you must invite as many European countries as possible. But of course, you must wait 70 days between every single invitation. All the while the Soviets are rapidly building up their military. The first country you must invite to the faction is a no-brainer. It's Austria. Because when they join your faction, they will hold a referendum on integrating into Germany. And they overwhelmingly vote yes. This is the birth of Greater Germany. International law be damned. Okay, now that the most important function of the alliance has been fulfilled, make sure to quickly invite everyone but Poland. It's quite likely actually that you don't even have the time to do that, because this alliance has made the Soviets really trigger happy, and they start a war against Poland in the summer of 1938. Luckily, Poland is not in your faction, so you don't have to worry about fighting the Soviets just yet. The Soviets eventually managed to break the Polish lines, and looks like the young nation is about to fall under occupation once more. But before they do, they contact you. Poland wants to save as many Poles from the Soviet oppression as possible, so they offer to return your former territory, for free no less. You of course accept, but only to help the Polish people, right? Right? And look at that, you're looking better than ever. Okay, now's the time to tackle the communist threat. They are no match for your coalition of nations, and soon they capitulate. Now that you're a democratic country, you have a responsibility to liberate as many people as you possibly can. Self-determination is a principle which you must hold near and dear to your heart. Now look at you. Just a few years ago, you were a fascist dictatorship, and now you fight alongside your European brothers to defend freedom. You truly have come a long way. And what were France and Britain doing all this time? Jack shit. There's one more ideology to go over. But hey, Germany doesn't have a communist path. No, they do not. But we don't need one. Just do the fascist path like normal, but remember to appoint this man, who should be in prison at this point in time, to the role of a political advisor. He will work in the shadows to boost the popularity of communism. You can now choose if you want to transition to communism peacefully via a referendum or by starting a civil war. While the peaceful method is a lot easier, I think that an armed revolution is much more fitting for the communists. So a civil war it is. Now that you're a communist, your new leader will be Wilhelm Pieck. Wait, he's still in exile. So this man is chosen to be a leader of a nation, but he doesn't even bother showing up. And Germany is now directly controlled by a man in Moscow. Well, that's something, I guess. Speaking of Moscow, you should immediately join the Comintern, because there is literally no other reason to turn communist. The situation might seem a bit familiar. Hey, this is just the Berlin-Moscow axis again. Well, kind of. Except this time, you don't have the mother of all alliances against you. So it's just easier than the Berlin-Moscow axis. So, time for war? So, the world has been conquered. The only two fully independent countries left are you and the Soviet Union. But this time, there is no reason to fight each other. You're both already communist. You're ideologically intertwined. Why would you ever want to break your alliance? As we have seen in history, communist nations always have very good relations with each other. Why would things be any different now? And the final way to play Germany requires high levels of skill and knowledge of the game. So if you're an elite level player, this is one of the more cursed runs you can do. As soon as you possibly can, start justifying a war goal on France and declare war immediately when the war goal is ready. Also, don't do any political focuses. Now you can either outmaneuver and encircle the French troops in your own territory or launch paratroopers on a few key cities. Also, when the war is about to end, start justifying a war goal on Luxembourg. When France falls, annex all of its European territory, but let them stay independent in their colonies. Now, Britain should be guaranteeing Luxembourg. Prepare a naval invasion on Great Britain and make it ready to launch before starting the war. When Britain joins on the side of Luxembourg, they'll notice that they forgot to deploy their navy for 1 hour at the start of the war. This means that your naval invasion is free to commence. Occupy everything but London and start declaring war on as many European miners as possible. When you're at war with most of the continent, move into London and most of your enemies should capitulate. Annex everything in Europe, but let the territories outside of the continent be. Don't puppet anything. Now you just need to conquer Italy and the Soviet Union. This shouldn't be too hard at this point, considering you control most of Europe already. Annex everything up to the Urals, and now you have technically conquered the whole continent of Europe. And here's the fun part. Now is the time to oppose the Mustache Man. Fight the civil war, and now re-establish free elections and compromise on the monarchy. And just like that, you're democratic. And now, open decisions. Scroll all the way to the bottom. What do we have here? Realize European unity.